there's a specific day that changes everything, and almost nobody notices it when it happens. No alarm goes off, no email arrives. You don't get a call from your bank congratulating you. You just open an account one ordinary evening, add up two numbers you've added up 100 times before, and realize that this month, for the first time, the money your investments made without you actually beat the money you made showing up to work. Nothing about your life looks different the next morning. Same alarm, same commute, same job. And that's exactly what makes this moment so strange, because it's one of the biggest shifts that can happen in a person's financial life, and it happens in complete silence. So here's the real question. What actually changes in your head and in your life the day your investments start earning more than your job does? Not the spreadsheet, the actual experience of being a person who crossed that line. Let's follow how this usually happens, because it's rarely dramatic. It starts years earlier with a decision most people barely remember making. A percentage of a paycheck redirected automatically into an investment account before it ever touches a checking account, before it ever becomes a choice you have to make twice. In the beginning, this money does almost nothing. It sits there quietly while your job does all the real work. Your salary pays for everything, the rent, the groceries, the version of your life you actually live in. The investment account is just a number on a screen, growing slowly enough that checking it feels almost pointless. This is the part where most people quit. Not because the plan failed, because it's boring. Watching a small number grow slowly is one of the least emotionally rewarding things a person can do, and the brain is built to lose interest in things that don't reward it quickly. Years 2 and 3 feel identical to year 1. Same slow crawl, same lack of proof that any of it is working. But here's what's actually happening underneath that boredom, and it's the part nobody feels while it's occurring. Every dollar sitting in that account isn't just sitting there. It's earning, and then the earnings start earning too. And at a certain point, the account stops needing new money from you to keep growing at a meaningful pace. This is the quiet engine behind almost every version of this story, and it doesn't announce itself. It just keeps compounding, invisible, while you're focused entirely on your job. Somewhere around year 5 or 6, something starts to feel slightly different, though it's hard to name exactly what. The investment account, once an afterthought, starts producing numbers that are no longer trivial. A market year goes well, and the account grows by more in 12 months than an entire year of saving used to add. This is usually the first moment someone thinks, almost as a joke, that their money might be starting to outwork them. Most people laugh it off and go back to work the next day. That's the interesting part of this story, because the crossover point, when it actually happens, rarely happens the year someone expects it. It happens quietly, often during a stretch when nothing dramatic is going on in someone's life at all. A normal month, a normal paycheck, and an investment account that, almost by accident, produced more that month than the job did. Here's why this catches nearly everyone off guard, and it comes down to a strange quirk in how compounding actually behaves. Growth that depends on a fixed percentage doesn't move in a straight line. It moves slowly for a long time, and then it moves fast all at once, in a way that feels almost sudden, even though the math behind it never changed. The account isn't doing anything different in year 8 than it was in year 2. It's just multiplying a much bigger number now. And a much bigger number moving at the same percentage produces a very different result. So the day it finally happens, the reaction is almost never celebration. It's usually confusion. People check the numbers twice, assume they made an error, and move on with their day because there's a meeting at 10 and the crossover point doesn't come with a notification. There's also a technical wrinkle here that most people don't learn about until they're standing right at this threshold, and it explains a lot of the hesitation. Earning more from investments in a given year doesn't automatically mean it's safe to live on that money permanently. A single strong year can be followed by a weak one, and if a large withdrawal happens to land during that weak stretch, it can do outsized damage to an account in a way that a steady paycheck never could. This is sometimes called sequence risk, and it's the quiet reason so many people who technically cross the threshold still keep working for a while afterward. The number crossed, the confidence to rely on that number through a bad year hasn't caught up yet. There's a social layer to this too, one that rarely gets talked about. Family and friends don't see the account. They see the same person going to the same job, and if that person mentions, even casually, that their investments made more than their salary last year, the reaction is often disbelief dressed up as a joke. It's a strange position to be in, quietly holding a fact about your own life that would sound unbelievable if you said it out loud, and choosing not to say it out loud most of the time. This is part of why the moment stays so private. There's rarely anyone around to share it with in real time. Now here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because you'd expect the natural next move to be obvious. Your money earns more than your job, so you quit, right? Almost nobody does, and understanding why explains something deep about how people actually relate to money and identity. The first reason is fear, and it's a completely rational one. A paycheck feels certain. An investment account, even a large one, is attached to a market that can drop without warning. The fear isn't really about the number. It's about trusting a number that moves. Job income feels solid because it arrives on a schedule. Investment income feels solid on a spreadsheet and terrifying in a downturn. And most people who reach this point have lived through at least one downturn that reminded them exactly how fast that number can shrink. The second reason is quieter, and it surprises people more. The job was never just a paycheck. It was a schedule, a sense of purpose, a group of people, a version of who you are when someone asks what you do. Crossing the income threshold doesn't remove any of that. It just reveals for the first time that you are staying partly by choice and partly by habit, and most people can't immediately tell which one it actually was. This is sometimes called the 1 more year problem, and it shows up constantly at this stage. The number technically works, the math says you have enough, but there's always 1 more year of security worth having, 1 more cushion worth building, 1 more reason the timing isn't quite right yet. The strange part is that the math rarely changes much in that extra year. What changes is the person's confidence in trusting a number they spent a decade not fully believing would ever get this big. For the people who do eventually change something, the change is usually smaller and stranger than the fantasy version. Not a dramatic resignation, a negotiation for fewer hours, a shift to work that pays less but costs less of them. A willingness to say no to a project that used to feel mandatory. The freedom this threshold buys isn't usually the freedom to stop working. It's the freedom to stop being afraid of what happens if you say no. It was never really about the money stopping to need you. It was about you finally being allowed to stop needing the job and discovering that unlearning that need takes far longer than building the number ever did.